Hi, I'm Jon Frankel, correspondent with HBO's Real Sports with Bryan Gumbel. I'm moderating a brief conversation with Candace Parker, the 2008 number one overall pick in the WNBA and who also made the All WNBA's first team this year. And we're also joined by Chris Conley, wide receiver with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who in 2015 was a third-round pick originally by the Kansas City Chiefs. And plays wide receiver again today with Jacksonville. Both of you, Candace and Chris, thank you for making time to join us today. Let's start with a big picture. Where do you think Black Lives Matters today? Where is this movement going at this point?
Well, I think this summer, a lot of us in the sports community were able to kind of really talk about things going in, obviously, with the quarantine and sports starting again. NBA took a pause, WNBA started late, NFL is just starting back up. And it was able for us to kind of take a look at our platform and how it can affect change and how we can move forward with this movement along with sports who in all of our sports, it's dominated by African Americans. And so I think this summer, especially going in, playing sports, going back to sports, we made that a priority to have conversations and to put those conversations and back them with action.
Chris, the Milwaukee Bucks took a stand when, during the course of the NBA playoffs, they decided that they wanted to protest and not play. When Candace and others talk about having a platform, is it important to be on the stage, to be performing, to be playing in order to have the platform, or is it better to step away?
There can be arguments that are made for both cases. And you can see some people's platforms are larger when they step off of the court or the field. And other people can grab the attention of the world while they're on that court or field. And so I think it's a little bit less about when and where, and it's more about just using it at any opportunity. We've had guys who have tried to step off of the field. We had people stand in solidarity with the Bucks and decide that they weren't going to practice or they weren't going into their buildings that day to make their statement. So I think there's different opportunities for that in the world of sports, and it varies by person.
Candace, the WNBA seems to be fairly unified in its approach and its response. Do you think that's an accurate assessment compared to some of the other leagues, particularly the NFL?
I do believe that the WNBA has been unified in their approach to social justice and always has been. This isn't something new that has happened. We don't shy away from acknowledging that we are a female league. We are all women, 80% African American, part of the LGBTQ. You talk about different social economic backgrounds. I mean, we are, the majority of the minority. And I do believe that it is our responsibility as the WNBA to continue to have those voices and to continue to get out into the communities. And we always have. And that made me really proud to be a part of solidarity, as Chris talked about. We stood with our brothers and they stood with us. This whole season has been dedicated to the Say Her Name campaign. Say Her Name. There are so many women, Black women, that have been killed with police brutality. And this season, we dedicated this season to acknowledging that, to bringing attention and awareness to that.
Chris, do you look on with a bit of envy, given that your league perhaps has not been quite as unified? I mean, the NBA joined the Milwaukee Bucks in shutting down the league when they wanted to protest. Even from the beginning, Colin Kaepernick back in 2016, there were different opinions in the NFL about how people should act. So are you a little bit jealous?
I would use a different word probably than jealous. But I think that the efforts of athletes in the NBA and the WNBA, such as Candace and her teammates, they really give fuel to people like me to come into our buildings and say, hey, we're not doing enough. Hey, we're not being bold enough in the face of pushback. We're not being bold enough in the face of financial threat or threats from fans, because at the end of the day, look at who's in this locker room. And you have people from all walks of life, but you have large and predominantly African-American players, coaches, and communities. And these people are crying out right now and wanting people to champion their voice. And I think that the NFL has been slow to respond. I think that players in different situations can be reluctant to step up and use their voice. I remember back in 2016 and 2017, just the climate in locker rooms and the fear that was going around, that guys just really wanted to hold on to their jobs. And I think this time around, you have more of those guys recognizing, hey, I didn't do enough. And hey, I didn't step up enough. And so it's beginning to grow. But as anything in the NFL, it always is slow. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of pushback because the league is all about money. And so the league will push back if they feel like their money is being threatened in any way. But we as players have to see beyond that. And we have to be able to be brave beyond what could happen to our jobs or our financial state.
I think what I hear you saying is something that you've said before, which is some of the bigger names, some of those players who might not be susceptible to getting cut. The LeBron James, if you will, of the NFL need to step forward and speak up.
Yes, I completely agree with that, because at the end of the day, if they get tired of me, they can cut Chris Conley and move on, and the league will not blink. And that's just the way that this machine of the NFL is set up. But there are a couple of cogs in that machine that are irreplaceable. And the more that those guys go out and they use their voices, they push back against the pushback, the more traction will happen. You know, you see guys like Patrick Mahomes starting to speak up more now. And when Patrick Mahomes speaks, the league listens. And if we can get people with that kind of weight behind their name to really push more for substantial and measurable change, then you'll start to see the league actually move quicker.
Candace, the WNBA has been engaged in this with you, as again the NBA was with the Milwaukee Bucks. How important is that? And maybe you can address this. In a certain way, did the NBA steal the narrative from the Milwaukee Bucks? I liken it to, do you lock the players out or do they strike? And then who gets to control the storyline? Did it hurt that the NBA sort of sided with the Milwaukee Bucks and shut down the playoffs at that point for a couple days?
I don't think it hurt at all. I think being on the same page and being on the same team. I know Adam Silver personally, and ever since he's been commissioner, it seems as though there's an open dialogue and there's conversation and there's communication. It's bringing others to the table that may not have the same viewpoints or background or similar stories as you do. And as long as we get to that point within all leagues across the board, and we're able to conversate and have conversations and bring other people to the table, I think we're all going to get accomplished what we want to accomplish. And to further causes, this is about Black Lives Matter, but this is about equality. All in all. And it's not yours, it's not mine, it's ours. And until we get to that point, then we're just going to be speaking words. And so I think the NBA is doing a good job of creating actionable change, charities, things that you can get involved with, social change fund, vote. LeBron has been huge with voter suppression. So as long as we're doing actionable items to help raise awareness and to help equality, I think we're on the same page and on the same team.
Chris, I know that you're involved in an effort called Getting the Game, and that's about getting the vote out. But you've also said that voting doesn't change everything. Tell me what you mean by that, and we don't have a ton of time, but how much does the history of all of this that's happened in this country play into what's going on today?
You look at so many of, I call them the symptoms of our country's history. And all of these things are symptoms of a long 400-year history of our country. And if you take away that context, then you're basically saying that these things would happen anyway, regardless of that history. And so when I say that voting doesn't solve everything, it doesn't. You have years and years and years of communities that have been neglected, people that have been terrorized, disenfranchised, and simple votes and propositions, they're good and they're a start, but they don't bring complete and total healing. And so there's so many different issues that you have to address to really clear up all of these symptoms. And we really need to come at it realizing the context of that history and looking at it from so many different angles. Voting is a piece. Voting is a piece. Voter suppression wouldn't be happening if it wasn't a big deal. So obviously the vote is important, but there are so many other ways that these people, my people, our people, I say our people because we're all Americans and we're all humans, but there's so many other ways that these communities have been put down, and we can't just focus on one way and think that it's going to solve everything.
Candace Parker, Chris Conley, I know that you appreciate the fact that people tune in to watch you for your physical skills, but it must be nice at this point to know that people are also listening to you and hearing what you're having to say about being civically engaged. Again, Candace Parker, Chris Conley, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.